Okay, Jim, want to proceed?
Yes. We want to get. So let's call the meeting of the Grand Bay Westfield Planning and Advisory Committee meeting on May 4th, 2020 to order. Record of attendance. I believe everybody is online tonight. And we now, PAC minutes of March 2nd, 2020. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to adopt as presented.
Seconder.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Accepted. Regular council meeting minutes of February 10th and March 9th, 2020. And I have a motion to receive and file as presented.
Moved.
Seconder.
I'll second.
Brittany, your mic's on. Off.
Here we go.
Okay.
Questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chairman's remarks. I have no remarks this evening. As everybody knows, David sent out the declaration of conflict of interest. So we'll move on to item 7, which is the main topic for tonight's meeting, is the applications for variance for 248 Inglewood Drive. Development item A is Development Officer Report of April 29th, 2020. And B, emails from Patrick Morris of April 14th and 25th, 2020. Brothers, are you online with us? Troy, has anybody signed in?
Yeah, John's here, Jim.
Okay, John's here.
Okay. I'm just not hearing him on my end, I guess.
Is my mic on or no? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, John.
Can hear you.
I got you now.
So,
So does anybody have questions for Mr. Crothers?
let's let him present to you.
Is okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr.
Follow
Crothers,
with questions.
yeah, if you could just give us an explanation of why and how, I guess, and the committee members can ask some questions if they so decide.
Sure. So I'm sure you were all aware of the conditions at 248 Inglewood. Unfortunately, at the time of purchase, I did not know the restrictions on this property. However, through a lot of work through the Environment Department, managed to squeeze out a very small parcel of the property that is suitable for building. So I'm of the 6.6 acres that the lot is, I'm pushed up against the northwest side of the property, and as such, as well as the PSW buffer, I also have a water course, which is a municipal drainage ditch, I do believe, which I acquired a WAWA permit to build within 5 meters of this ditch. But even at the 5 meters, that's pushed, that's crowded all my setbacks. In order to achieve the building on the site, I was requesting that the north setback be reduced to 10 feet. I know at Grand Bay it's 15 feet, I believe. whereas most municipalities is at the 3 meter or 10 foot mark, which gives me just enough room to establish the footprint of the site and stay outside of the 5 meter buffer from the water course, and obviously stay outside of the 100-foot PSW buffer. As far as the variance for the 30-inch first floor over the center of the roadway, because the property is so low, I'm already bringing in approximately $15,000 worth of fill and a $10,000 retaining wall to maintain my backfill so it does not spread onto the PSW buffer. So therefore, to get the property in there, I mean, to have the house main floor to be 30 inches over the top of the roadway would be an insurmountable amount of fill that would require to bring that ground up that far. So it's about I'm looking at about 1.4 meters that my driveway or my main floor level will be below the road.
So my question, Mr. Carruthers, you're going to be filling in this land and you're going to be putting up a retaining wall. Has this been an engineered plan, or is this your plan?
Well, it was the wall itself that I'm using, what the nickname is Costco blocks from Quality Concrete, has a 3-block high limit to be non-engineered. Anything over three blocks high requires engineering, but below 3 blocks, I was told that I would not need engineering to assemble this wall as per manufacturer's recommendations. The wall itself is not a seawall. It's not meant to hold back water. It's strictly to stop my backfill from the foundation going onto the PSW buffer.
Now, how are you doing your infill? Have you got an engineering plan for this, or are you doing it?
Yes, once excavation begins, and we excavate to approximately, I need to approximately 4.7 or 4.5 meters of elevation. There is a segment of the property, mostly to the northeast, that is actually slightly lower than that. So I will require to have Fundy Engineering come in at that time and specify the type and compaction rate for the engineered fill for this building. It's only a single story ICF construction, so generally I don't require much more than about 18,000 psi to 2,000 or for the soil density. So at that time, once we scrub the land and then excavate to my minimum depth, I will know how much of the property that I'd have to bring in the engineered fill. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm impressed by how can I put it? Alex, he talked about PSI or something about.
Soil compaction.
Oh, is that what
Compaction.
it is? Okay. All right.
Kilopascal.
At at the end of the day, the thing you should be looking for, I guess, would be a letter from the engineering firm stating that it was done in accordance with their recommendations, and you can use that as warranty on your house as well if there's any excessive settlement over time.
Just as a note, I've been building homes for about 35 years. built about 30 or 40 major projects, so I'm very comfortable in this field. I've done many engineered slabs. We typically use fundy engineering, but like I said, typically we will excavate first to try and get down to our grade that we're looking for, and then once we determine that we can't, we have to raise the elevation to meet my minimum elevation, then that material has to be approved by fundy engineering and the amount of fill and how much compaction is required.
How did you come to your elevation height of 7.25 meters?
It was a calculation of the height of the seawall, or the retaining wall that I'm doing will be at 6.5 meters, based on maximum 3-block high construction.
Yep.
And the existing elevation at along the line of the PSW buffer. From there, I calculated. I've been on site and used my laser to identify the depths. I actually had a survey come in and give me an elevation pin, which I measured everything off that pin. And so the top of the retaining wall is 6.5 meters. And then I was on, so from there, I was allowing another meter or 3/4 of a meter from the height of that wall to the finished height of my ground slab. This construction is on slab. There's no foundation, one level living.
I noticed not as long as the full length of the structure shown on the sketch.
No, because that on the far on the north side of the property, which would be the left-hand side of the plot plan, the ground level is already at 6.5 meters.
Okay, that makes,
All right.
So I'll be going from approximately 4.3 meters up to the 6.5 meters. And at that point in time, the land, when the wall meets the existing elevation, I will terminate the wall at that point.
Is there any further?
the stream that goes through your property or runoff or whatever you want to call it,
Yes.
planning to put another culvert in there to direct the flow, or are you just leaving it open?
No, my WAWA permit is to alter the direction of the stream. So basically, I need to push the stream further south or southeast, so
Yes.
that I can leave the 5-meter buffer from it and still fit the structure on.
Okay.
So that's the approval from the fire department is for me to alter the course of this water course.
So you're going to do that using culverts or piping, or?
No, it'll just be we'll be just excavating and restructuring the sides of each side of the stream with appropriate material to inhibit erosion and keep the stream in that fixed position.
Okay.
From there, I'll have to require a fairly steep embankment going up, but it will not exceed a 1-to-1 slope. It'll be more like a 1-to-2 slope from the shoulder of the stream up to the finished grade backfill against the right-hand side of the property.
So you've probably picked up right away, I'm not an engineer, but I love to ask questions. So knowing that water has a mind of its own,
Yes.
female, okay. Do you perceive, And with your years of building and experience doing what you're doing, will the water go in the direction you want it in, or do you anticipate that down the road there's going to be issues for you or your neighbors?
Definitely. My next neighbor on that side, 250 Inglewood, I think it is. He is approximately 4 meters higher than this stream.
Okay.
There's a significant height difference in elevation between him and the stream, so he's definitely not in any concern whatsoever. He's already, in previous years, that property's already been lifted up to a significant level. I believe he is almost at 7 meters. And the stream is around 4 meters. So when I say that when we relocate the stream, the bed of the new stream will be solid material, like be probably like 2-inch stone that would be in the base, and then heavier stone on the banks, so that it won't erode. If I use like topsoil or soft material, then it would in a flood it would find its own path. But we heavier rock on the sides to channel that stream and make sure it stays in that location. I'm only, as far as the length of the stream, I'm only altering about 50 feet of the stream. After I'm not allowed to touch, I'm not allowed to alter it inside the PSW buffer. So once it passes my new structure, it would go wherever it wants.
Okay.
I'm just kind of going through your Wawa requirements here. Is there a requirement to follow up once the stream restoration has been completed, or the alteration?
I had several recommendations from the Department of Fisheries, who had the final say in this. They basically were just several questions that they had for me was how I was going to stabilize the material once we put it back in, and that what they were looking for there is to make sure that once we disturbed the material there, that we would be planting some type of greenery there to steady the material that's in there.
I just have one question about the retaining wall, just so I'm clear on the purpose. So we're not redirecting water or stopping water. You're just using that retaining wall to keep the fill from going back into the PSW buffer area. Am I correct in that assumption? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Crothers?
Yeah, if we get freshet similar to last year, what will the impact be on your neighbor?
If we get the flood 5.6 meters. I'm sorry. Your audio was broken up there. I didn't. Are you asking? Yes. So a freshet at 5.7 meters.
Divert property onto your neighbors? Yeah.
No, absolutely not. The majority of this wall is only on this in the middle of the property. It doesn't. The retaining wall does not. I don't know if you have a site plan in front of you from my but I have to stay 5 meters away from the water course, which is approximately 40 feet away from 250 Inglewood, and my retaining wall ends approximately 50 feet before 246 Inglewood. So, and that area, like I said, that area on the north, which is on 246 Inglewood, is already well above the highest water level we've ever had. So that side of the property is roughly around 6 meters at the lowest, all the way up to 7.5 to 8 meters. Like I said prior, on the other side of my property at 250 Inglewood, there's approximately 3 meters difference in the elevation.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Crothers?
No.
I guess I just want to clarify. So the idea of being below street level is not really, it's not necessarily something that you are limited by. It's just something that you're requesting at this point.
There is certain limits to the amount of fill that I can bring into the property. As far as cost wise, I mean, to bring the property up to the level that would meet the bylaw would require a wall 3 times its height and exponential amounts of fill, which makes the property unrealistic to develop.
So just to follow up on that, to be clear, if that was the requirement, then you would withdraw your application completely?
We probably would, yes. We'd be talking upwards of $50,000 or $60,000 in material, and even much more at that point in time we'd have to have a retaining wall that went completely from 250 to 246, and just exponentially expensive. I know that probably cost is really not priority, but I mean, for me to develop this property, it's definitely.
I understand.
Okay, everybody has got all their questions answered.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Troy, is there anybody out there that's trying to call in?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Well, I guess our next step is we need a motion, people. Okay. Nobody wants to make a motion?
Is that what we're waiting for?
Yes.
I guess the one thing that, before anyone does make a motion, I guess the one thing that I do have a concern with, John, is if the bylaw is above street level, if you go below street, I do hear what you're saying about the cost and the wall. The one thing I am concerned about is you could potentially struggle with water behind you and in front of you because it'll be coming off the road, it'll be coming behind you as well.
Yes, I'm fully aware of that. Like I said, I've done several projects where we've been significantly below the road, and I do understand that by me not adhering to the town's bylaw, that I'm liable and for any damages to my property. I have no grounds to have any conversation with the town of Grand Bay on any damages that I incur.
I guess the other thing too that I'm curious about is, so for it to be 1.765 meters below street elevation, is that the maximum that it could go up without changing the design of your wall?
No, not really. I'm actually 7.25 is my target. The better the better the wall goes in, and the when we're putting the infill in, if I can squeeze more, it's definitely my intention to make it as high as I can possibly do with this design. I also know that, acknowledge that, my driveway is a downhill driveway. But I've, there's on the site plan, my drainage plan, I have significant, drainage areas which I'm drained into, will be directly into that, municipal, culvert that comes onto the property as well. So my driveway culvert and all my, drain tile and my drainage for my retaining wall will all run into that same collector.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if no one here is willing to make a motion tonight, my question then to Mr. Carruthers, if we table this for 2 weeks, how does that impact on your plan? Because you've provided us with a lot of information, a lot more than what was in the package. And I know I'm trying to filter it, and I'm looking at some of the faces of my colleagues, and I know they're trying to take all that you have provided us with tonight and filter it through. So if we table it, so we can all then relook at the whole thing with all the additional information you've provided us, so that we can come back in, David, it would be 2 weeks,
Yes.
and make our motion
May 19th,
May 19th.
Tuesday.
Okay. So Mr. Carruthers, that really messed your plans up.
Well, I've spoken to David about this, prior. I have, all my, excavation contractor scheduled for June 1st.
Oh,
And
first of all, hats off to you as a developer. You're one of the first ones that has come in without starting and come forward to us. We often get them where they've started, and then can't understand why we're got our knickers in a knot. And sorry, I have phraseology. So anyways, I would like to make a motion that we table this to May 19th, so we can all reflect on what Mr. Carruthers has provided us with, which is an addition to the materials we've received.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay. So, Mr. Carruthers, as you know, we tabled it to the May 19th meeting, and if there's any other information that you may have or that comes to light to you from the engineering firm or your excavator, if you could forward through to David, then he can put it into the package for us for the May 19th meeting.
Mr. Chair, you forgot to ask us if who was in favor and who was not for that.
Can we put that to a vote?
Yes, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any questions on the motion?
You need to, also those against.
I'm against.
I guess I'm kind of on the fence right now. The one thing I'm still concerned about is I do realize you have put a lot of effort into this package, but I do wonder if this wasn't engineer drawing, something that's stamped, we have a better idea of how low below the street it actually has to be. More often than not, like that road does not have curbage on that side of the road, either side. And I guess I'm more concerned about road runoff. Like I have a lot of concerns about it being not far below the street level.
Okay.
If it was an stamped drawing, would it be different? Would we know?
For me to hire Funny Engineering, as any other soil engineer company I could get, unless they excavate, we don't know what's below the ground. So generally we excavate and we examine what the type of material that we're working with, and then that all goes into the equation of the type and density of the engineered fill that's required. As far as the the drainage and the how the property is lower than the road. I mean, that's the natural elevation of the property. I'm coming up considerably higher than the average elevation of the property. Typically, like I said, we've done this type of construction before, and you know, it's all about water management, proper slopes on the building, and maintaining flow through culverts and through drainage.
The only concern I have, even more just from what you've just said, you won't know till you get in, start digging, see what's down there. So does that mean that it's possible that it may not even get as high as 1.765 meters below street level? It may be 2 meters below?
No, I you know, whatever happens, whatever amount of material I need to, like it's the depth of the organic material that we're talking about. So, like I said, normally we strip all organic material, or no organic material is allowed to be under any building or any other type of construction. We have to remove all organic material and replace it with non-organic Class A or Class B material. At that time, you know, from my measurements that I've taken with my equipment to establish my grade, that's been carefully taken into consideration with the natural elevation of the property and the elevation which we feel is the minimum amount of elevation that we're required to have the house suitable for us in the future. So I can assure you that the main floor slab elevation will be no less than 7.25 meters.
I believe we have Bev, motion, Phil, and was it Brittany that voted to table?
Yes.
And I've,
And that leaves, I don't know where, Teresa, are you yes or no?
So if I have to vote tonight,
We're just voting the table.
table.
Just vote. This is just to table it till 2 weeks.
Do we have a majority to do that? That's what I'm trying to see.
Yeah, you've already got majority to table it.
and the intention of tabling it for 2 weeks is so we can digest the information that John has provided to us tonight.
Yes.
I would like to reread the package, knowing what I know now.
Tabling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of technical engineering information, and having actually heard from Mr. Carruthers tonight and putting those together, I think I'll have a better sense of what's actually going on
Yes.
when I have a chance to put those two things together.
One of the downsides, if they do raise the fill any higher, that I could potentially see is where it's in close proximity to the retaining wall, and without raising the height of the retaining wall, it leaves you a steeper slope between your house and your retaining wall, and that could be prone to surface erosion.
Correct.
If you raise the fill much higher, you will be prone to erosion above the wall spilling out over the wall. So the slope behind the wall also has to be considered. The slope behind the wall also plays a factor in the amount of pressure on the wall. So if you increase the slope, the 6 foot or 3 block high manufacturers' pre-engineered recommendations start to fall off the wayside. So there is nuances there as well.
There's a considerable soil stability from the actual foundation itself too, because it's in close proximity, and it's sitting. Typically, my foundation is about 50 inches tall to 10-inch footing and 4 foot of ICF wall. So between the two, they actually work in tandem. So I agree with you. If I'd built this or put this 3-block high block wall up, and we had unrestricted flow into the wall from the as soil becomes more damp, it creates more pressure, and there could be more chance of wall failure if that was the case. But the placement of the foundation itself stabilizes that material.
What's the just looking at your site drawing there? Maybe it's right on it. What's the distance approximately from the wall to the house?
There's a variance different numbers depending on because of the unusual angle of the PSW buffer. The closest it's 12 feet, and the furthest at the very north it's something like 28 feet to 30 feet.
Okay. Yeah, so you're 12 feet back, so that shouldn't be a terribly steep slope, but you're still 1 meter over 3.5 meters. That's high enough.
David. Mr. Crow, there's one thing, I'm very visual. I have to see something sometimes to start and put it into place. Is it possible with this week that I could meet you at your property and any other members here of the committee at the same time for you to show where and how you're doing this? We're looking at the property from the street.
Absolutely. Anybody, if that's what would make it clearer for some people.
Yeah, okay. Teresa's numbers. I can relate. All right. Is there one particular time that's good for everybody? I know I have council meetings this week, but I'm free like Wednesday at supper time, maybe at 6:30. So for those of you that are still working in isolation, would that be doable? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Wednesday, the 6th works for me.
That would work for me.
I can make it work. Yeah.
Yep.
So what time would be best? 6:30?
Does it work for John?
What?
Does it work for John?
Well, first of all, I got to the moms to make sure that the moms can make it work. So is that good for you, John?
Absolutely. Like I said, I've been trying very hard to develop this property, so I'll do what's needed. Absolutely.
All right, so Wednesday night at 6:30 down on Inglewood, we're going to be 6 meters apart. So somebody bring a hockey stick so that we can keep measuring. And we'll see you all then. And Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Do we need to complete the vote on the motion?
All right.
You've got the motion.
So all those in favor of tabling Mr. Crothers' application for variance at 248 Ingleside Drive? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Contrary?
Aye.
Okay. Right. Motion is to table to the 19th with a meeting with Mr. Crothers on Wednesday night, 6:30. So that is item 7 covered for this evening. The next is adjournment. Can I have somebody make a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Seconder?
Don't need one for German. Robert's Rules of Order.
All right, everybody.
Thank you for your input tonight.
Thank you very
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.